The encounter of the greenhouse dome's glass panels rattled as the desert sandstorm raged outside. Sonia Patel adjusted her headlamp, focusing on the wilting succulents before her. 6 months into her research grant at the Sonoran Desert Botanical Institute, and she was no closer to solving the mysterious blight affecting native desert plants. "Come on, little ones," she whispered, carefully applying the experimental nutrient solution she'd developed. At 32, Sonia had abandoned a promising career at a prestigious university to pursue this passion project, developing drought-resistant crops that could thrive in increasingly hostile climates. The research center was remote, underfunded, and exactly where she belonged. The facility's ancient power generator chose that moment to sputter and die. Darkness engulfed the dome except for her headlamp's narrow beam. "Perfect timing," she muttered, reaching for her emergency kit. The institute's director had warned her about the spring sandstorms, but nothing prepared her for their ferocity. She was checking the backup systems when an unexpected sound caught her attention. Frantic knocking at the greenhouse's rear entrance. Sonia hesitated. The research station was 30 miles from the nearest town, and no one traveled these back roads during a sandstorm. The knocking grew more insistent. She approached cautiously, flashlight in hand. Through the sandblasted glass, she made out a human figure, hunched against the wind. She unlocked the door, and the storm nearly tore it from her grasp as a tall figure stumbled inside, covered in protective gear caked with red dust. "Thank you," came a muffled voice from behind the dust mask and goggles. "My vehicle broke down about a mile back." The stranger removed the protective headgear, revealing a man in his late 30s with sharp features, prematurely silver-streaked hair, and exhausted gray eyes. "I'm Maddox," he said, extending a dust-covered glove before thinking better of it. Maddox Reed. Sonia Patel, resident botanist and, apparently, desert search and rescue. She handed him a water bottle. "What were you doing out there? No one takes the South Access Road, especially during storm season." Maddox drank deeply before answering. "I was heading to the old Watkins property. I didn't realize how quickly the storm would hit." Sonia raised an eyebrow. "The abandoned tech facility. It's been closed for years. I'm evaluating it for potential purchase," he said, his eyes darting around the greenhouse. "This is quite an impressive setup, especially for such a remote location." "It serves its purpose," she replied, noting how his gaze lingered on her experimental station. "The power's out, but the backup generator should kick in soon. You're welcome to wait out the storm here." Over the next few hours, as the storm howled outside, Sonia found herself engaged in the most stimulating scientific conversation she'd had in months. Maddox asked insightful questions about her research, revealing an unexpected knowledge of botanical genetics. "You know a lot about plant biology for someone in real estate," she observed, offering him a cup of instant coffee from her camping stove. A slight smile crossed his face. "I dabble in various fields. Your work on drought resistance could have applications far beyond agriculture." When the facility's ancient radio crackled with a warning that the storm would continue through morning, Sonia offered him the cot in her makeshift office. "Unless you prefer the lab floor." "The cot sounds luxurious compared to where I've slept before," he replied with unexpected candor that night. As Maddox slept, Sonia caught herself wondering about her mysterious visitor. Something about his knowledge and mannerisms didn't match his story. She pulled up the regional property database on her tablet, searching for information on the Watkins facility, but found only that it had been acquired by an anonymous holding company 3 months ago. By morning, the storm had subsided to a gentle wind. Sonia found Maddox examining her experimental plants with remarkable focus. "Your nutrient solution is interesting," he said without looking up. "But have you considered ionic delivery systems? The cellular uptake would improve dramatically." Sonia stared at him. "That's highly specialized knowledge for someone dabbling in plant biology." Before he could respond, the facility's satellite phone rang, her first contact with the outside world since the storm began. It was the institute's director. "Frantic Sonia, are you all right? We've just heard that Maddox Ward has gone missing in your area during the storm." "Who?" Sonia asked, glancing toward her visitor. "Maddox Ward, the founder of Nexus Technologies. He was surveying investment opportunities when his security team lost contact. The governor has authorized a search party." Sonia slowly turned toward Maddox, who was watching her with a resigned expression. "I believe," she said carefully into the phone, "that your missing person has been found." Asterisk hidden truths. The silence between them stretched thin as Sonia placed the satellite phone back in its cradle. Outside, the desert had transformed into a surreal landscape of sculpted sand dunes under a brilliant blue sky that betrayed no evidence of yesterday's fury. Sonia said, crossing her arms. "Maddox Ward, not Red, founder of Nexus Technologies, not a real estate prospector." She studied him with newfound wariness. "Care to explain why one of the world's leading tech innovators is wandering through a sandstorm to an abandoned facility, using a fake name?" Maddox ran a hand through his dust-streaked hair, the casual gesture at odds with his reputation as the ruthlessly private billionaire, whose neural interface technology had revolutionized prosthetics and communication systems. "I find that people behave differently around wealth," he said simply. And I needed honesty, not performance. Honesty about what? Sonia asked. Her scientific curiosity piqued despite her irritation. Maddox walked to the large research table, where her notes and plant specimens were meticulously arranged. Your work, he said. The rumors about what you're accomplishing here warranted investigation. Sonia laughed without humor. Rumors? About my underfunded research station in the middle of nowhere? That's hard to believe. Dr. Patel, he said, using her professional title for the first time. Your paper on cellular adaptation in extremophile plants 3 years ago at Berkeley was groundbreaking. Then you suddenly abandoned your tenure track and disappeared into the desert. The scientific community noticed. Sonia felt a flush of pride mingled with discomfort. She had purposely sought anonymity after the academic politics at Berkeley had nearly destroyed her passion for science. That doesn't explain why you're here personally, she challenged. Nexus Technologies could have sent any number of qualified scientists to evaluate my work. A shadow passed over Maddox's face. My interest is personal as well as professional. He hesitated, seeming to debate how much to reveal. My sister has Hashimoto's syndrome. The conventional treatments are failing her immune system. Your research on plant adaptability in hostile environments has potential applications for human autoimmune disorders. The revelation hung between them, unexpected and disarming. Sonia hadn't considered medical applications for her work, focused as she was on food security in changing climates. I'm sorry about your sister, she said, softening slightly, but my research is years away from any medical application, and I'm not sure I appreciate being investigated under false pretenses. Before Maddox could respond, the sound of approaching helicopters filled the air. His security team had arrived. The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. The research station was suddenly crowded with security personnel in tactical gear, medical staff checking Maddox for injuries, and his personal assistant, a sharp-haired woman named Vivian, who looked at Sonia with a mixture of gratitude and suspicion. Mr. Ward has arranged for repairs to the station's generator and communications equipment, Vivian informed Sonia crisply, and he would like to speak with you before departure. Sonia found Maddox outside, gazing at the horizon where heat waves distorted the landscape. He had changed into fresh clothes, transforming back into the powerful figure she recognized from rare news photographs. I've authorized immediate funding for your research, he said without preamble. No strings attached, no corporate oversight. The grant will be administered through the Ward Foundation to avoid publicity. Sonia felt a flash of indignation. I don't need your charity, Mr. Ward. It's not charity, he countered. It's investment in critical research. Your work deserves proper resources. And what do you get in return? She asked skeptically. Something unexpected flashed in his eyes, vulnerability perhaps, or hope, quarterly updates on your progress, and the possibility that someday your findings might help people like my sister. The helicopter's rotors began spinning up, creating a small sandstorm of their own. Maddox handed her a slim carbon fiber card with only a private number etched into its surface. For direct communication, he explained. No assistance, no bureaucracy. Sonia accepted it reluctantly. You could have just applied for a research partnership like a normal person. The corner of his mouth lifted in the ghost of a smile. I'm told normal isn't my specialty. After the helicopters departed, leaving the desert eerily quiet, Sonia discovered the extent of Maddox's repairs. Brand new laboratory equipment had been installed, the greenhouse reinforced against future storms, and a state-of-the-art solar power system now hummed efficiently where the ancient generator had stood. 2 days later, while exploring the expanded capacity of her new equipment, Sonia made a breakthrough. The plant cells were responding to her adjusted formula with unprecedented resilience. On impulse, she reached for the carbon fiber card and dialed the number. Maddox answered on the second ring. That was faster than expected, he said, bypassing greeting altogether. How did you know I was calling about research? She asked, surprised. You strike me as someone who values results over social niceties, he replied, and she could hear the smile in his voice, against her better judgment. Sonia found herself describing her breakthrough, falling into the technical language she rarely got to use with others. Maddox asked insightful questions, challenging her assumptions in ways that clarified her thinking. 2 hours later, she realized they had somehow moved from discussing cellular regeneration to sharing stories about their paths through academia, his truncated by his technological innovations, hers by disillusionment. You should visit the Watkins facility, Maddox said eventually. I wasn't lying about evaluating it. I'm converting it into a research center focusing on integrated biological and technological solutions. Your perspective would be valuable. Sonia hesitated, aware of crossing a threshold. Is this a professional invitation, Mr. Ward? Maddox, he corrected gently. And let's call it professionally personal. After they disconnected, Sonia stood in her transformed laboratory, fingering the edge of the carbon fiber card. Outside, the desert stretched endlessly. Beautiful and harsh a landscape that demanded adaptation from everything that hoped to survive within it. Perhaps, she thought, people weren't so different. Asterisks growing shadows the repurposed Watkins. facility gleamed like a mirage against the desert backdrop, its modernized exterior blending sustainable architecture with a natural landscape. 6 weeks after the sandstorm encounter, Sonia found herself standing in its central atrium, marveling at the transformation from abandoned tech outpost to cutting-edge research center. The East Wing houses the botanical laboratories, explained Dr. Raman Javadi, the facility's newly appointed research director, as he led Sonia through the complex. A renowned biochemist with kind eyes and a meticulous manner, he had been personally recruited by Maddox. Your temporary lab is adjacent to the hydroponic testing chamber. Mr. Ward thought you'd appreciate the proximity. Temporary? Sonia questioned, adjusting the strap of her bag containing precious experimental samples. Dr. Javadi smiled diplomatically. Mr. Ward mentioned your independent streak. The space is yours for as long as our research interests align. The laboratory exceeded anything Sonia had imagined. Equipment she had only read about, growth chambers with precision environmental controls, and a team of research assistants at her disposal. It was intoxicating and unsettling in equal measure. Maddox appeared late that afternoon, dressed in simple dark clothing that contrasted with the sterile brightness of the facility. He moved through the space with the quiet intensity she remembered, nodding at staff members who regarded him with a mixture of respect and wariness. You've created something remarkable here, Sonia acknowledged when they were alone in her lab, the desert sunset painting the space in amber hues. We've barely begun, Maddox replied, studying one of her plant specimens with genuine interest. How are you settling in? The facilities are impressive, she admitted, but I'm still trying to understand my role here. Dr. Javadi mentioned collaborative research, but everyone seems vague about the specific objectives. Maddox's expression shifted subtly. Walk with me, he said, gesturing toward a door that led to an exterior pathway outside. The desert was cooling rapidly, the heat of the day surrendering to the approaching night. They followed a winding path through a carefully cultivated garden of native plants until they reached a secluded bench overlooking the landscape. What I'm about to share isn't public knowledge, Maddox said after they sat. Nexus Technologies has developed a prototype, neuroorganic interface living technology that can communicate with human biological systems. Sonia's scientific mind raced with implications. You're talking about cybernetic integration with biological tissue. More like a partnership, he corrected. Traditional cybernetics replaces biological function. We're developing systems that enhance and heal without replacement, but we've hit a fundamental barrier: rejection. The human immune system fights the interface, no matter how biocompatible we make it. Understanding dawned, and my research on plant cellular adaptation in hostile environments ... could potentially provide the key to creating truly symbiotic interfaces, Maddox finished. Your work on how desert plants adjust their cellular structures to survive extreme conditions has parallels to what we're trying to achieve. Sonia's initial excitement faded as ethical concerns surfaced. This goes far beyond agricultural applications. Maddox, we're talking about fundamentally altering human biology. To heal, not transform, he insisted, a new intensity in his voice. Imagine spinal injuries repaired without invasive surgery, neurodegenerative diseases halted in their progression, autoimmune disorders like my sister's managed without lifelong medication. Their conversation lasted well into the night, the ethical debate stretching between them like a fragile bridge over a widening chasm of philosophical differences. Yet beneath the professional disagreement, Sonia sensed a deepening personal connection. Maddox listened to her concerns with genuine consideration, never dismissing her caution as mere resistance to progress. As weeks turned into months, Sonia found herself caught in the gravitational pull of both the research and its enigmatic founder. The work was exhilarating, combining her botanical expertise with cutting-edge technology in ways that pushed boundaries of both fields. And Maddox was unlike anyone she had ever known, brilliant but wounded, driven yet capable of surprising gentleness. They fell into a rhythm of late-night discussions in her lab or his modest office, talking through research challenges that evolved into conversations about literature, philosophy, and their divergent childhoods. Hers in a close-knit immigrant community in Chicago, his in austere privilege punctuated by personal tragedy. You never mentioned what happened to your parents, Sonia said one evening as they shared a simple meal among her plant specimens. Maddox's expression closed like a door. There's nothing to tell. They died when I was 14. My sister and I were raised by a succession of guardians more interested in our trust funds than our welfare. The pieces of his personality began to align: his distrust of superficial connections, his sister's central importance in his life, his obsession with creating technology that healed. But as their personal connection deepened, external pressures mounted. Vivian, Maddox's assistant, began appearing more frequently, her polite demeanor barely concealing her concern about his growing distraction from corporate responsibilities. Research updates that had once been casual became formalized meetings with Nexus Technologies executives attending remotely. Then came the feature in Technology Innovator magazine, highlighting the mysterious desert research facility with speculation about revolutionary medical technology and development. Though the article mentioned neither Sonia nor the specific nature of the research, the sudden attention brought unwelcome scrutiny. We have a security concern, Dr. Javadi informed her one morning, his normally calm demeanor strained. Someone attempted to access your research data last night. The breach was contained, but it appears to have been highly targeted. That evening, Sonia found Maddox in the facility's security center, reviewing footage with his head of security, a former military intelligence officer named Garrett. Industrial espionage, Garrett explained tersely. Likely Lambert biotechnology. They've been trying to compete with Nexus in neural interface technology for years. Or it could be related to the pending Defense Department contract, Maddox added grimly. The military applications of this research would be substantial. Sonia felt as though she'd been struck. Military applications. That was never discussed. The look Maddox gave her was complex, apologetic, but unyielding. There are multiple applications being explored. Defense contracts provide necessary funding for the medical research. You mean weapons, she said flatly. You're using my research to develop weapons. I'm using every available resource to advance technology that will help millions, including my sister, he countered. The defense applications are secondary but necessary for continued funding. The argument that followed was their first real conflict, raw and fundamental. Sonia left the facility that night, driving back to her original research station to clear her head. The desert night embraced her with familiar stillness, but she found no peace in it. 3 days later, she received a message from Dr. Javadi Lambert. Biotechnology had announced a breakthrough in cellular adaptation. Technology for medical interfaces, technology suspiciously similar to her unreleased research. There had been a leak, and now Sonia found herself at the center of a corporate espionage investigation, with suspicion falling on everyone including her. Breaking point. The investigation transformed the Watkins facility overnight. Security personnel now outnumbered researchers. Cameras tracked movement in every corridor, and an atmosphere of suspicion permeated the once collaborative environment. Sonia's credentials were temporarily restricted, limiting her access to only her immediate laboratory space. This is standard protocol, Dr. Javadi assured her, but the tightness around his eyes suggested otherwise. We're investigating everyone who had access to the compromised data. Sonia's work crawled to a frustrating halt as she waited for clearance to access her complete datasets. More troubling was Maddox's sudden absence. Had been called to Nexus headquarters to manage the crisis. According to the terse message Vivian delivered. When Lambert Biotechnology publicly unveiled their groundbreaking cellular adaptation technology the following week, the betrayal was complete. The announcement included specific methodologies that Sonia recognized immediately as her own work. Though cleverly disguised under different terminology, they must have had inside help, Garrett concluded during an emergency meeting. His gaze lingered on Sonia longer than necessary, someone with intimate knowledge of both the botanical research and its technological applications. The implication hung in the air like poison gas. Sonia felt her face flush with anger. If you're suggesting I had anything to do with this, no one is making accusations. Dr. Javadi interjected quickly, but we must consider all possibilities. Later that day, Sonia discovered that her personal research notes had been confiscated for examination. It was the final indignity. She packed her essential belongings and headed for her vehicle, determined to return to her original research station until the situation clarified. She was crossing the parking lot when a sleek black car pulled alongside her, the window lowered to reveal Maddox, looking exhausted. Going somewhere? He asked quietly. Back to work, that's actually mine, she replied, anger and hurt making her voice sharp. Somewhere I'm not treated as a security threat. Maddox got out of the car, squinting against the harsh midday sun. I need to show you something, please. Against her better judgment, Sonia followed him back into the facility, through security checkpoints and down to a sublevel she hadn't known existed. They entered a specialized medical suite where a woman sat in a chair by the window, reading. She looked up as they entered, her features a softer feminine echo of Maddox's. You must be Dr. Patel, the woman said, setting aside her book. I'm Elise Ward. My brother has told me about your extraordinary work. Understanding crashed over Sonia. This was why Maddox had been absent, not just dealing with the security breach, but bringing his sister to the facility. Elise agreed to participate in the first human trial, Maddox explained, the controlled facade slipping to reveal naked hope. The prototype interface, combined with your adaptation methodology, showed promising results in all preliminary tests. But Lambert stole my research, Sonia protested. How could you proceed? They stole early data, Maddox corrected. Not your breakthrough from last month. That remained secure. Elise's gentle voice cut through the tension. I understand your work was taken without permission, Dr. Patel. But please understand this could be my last chance. The conventional treatments have stopped working entirely. Sonia looked between the siblings, seeing the same determined vulnerability in both faces. This had never been just about corporate success or technological innovation for Maddox. It had always been about saving his sister. The trial starts tomorrow, Maddox said. I'm not asking you to forgive the security procedures or the suspicion you faced. I'm asking you to see this through, for all the reasons you began this work in the first place. The following day brought both triumph and disaster. The neural organic interface was successfully integrated with Elise's immune system, showing immediate positive responses. For 6 hopeful hours her vital signs stabilized, and the autoimmune markers in her blood decreased significantly. Then, catastrophically, her system began to reject the interface. The adaptation mechanism that had worked flawlessly in laboratory testing failed under the complex reality of a human immune system in crisis. Sonia worked frantically alongside the medical team, adjusting parameters, suggesting modifications. Maddox remained by his sister's side, his composure fracturing as her condition deteriorated. In the early hours of morning, with Elise stabilized but the interface failing, Sonia made a realization. The adaptation sequence is correct, but the timing is wrong, she explained to the exhausted team. Plants adapt gradually to environmental stress. We're asking human cells to change too quickly. She proposed a radical modification slowing the interface activation to match natural cellular rhythms. It was untested, potentially dangerous, but Elise, conscious and aware of her declining condition, gave her consent. Trust her, she told her brother, squeezing his hand weakly. I do. The modified procedure worked. By dawn, Elise's vital signs had stabilized again, and the interface showed signs of true integration. The medical team cautiously declared the immediate crisis over. Though long-term outcomes remained uncertain, Sonia found Maddox alone in the observation room, watching his sleeping sister through the glass. He looked broken and reassembled, like something precious that had cracked and been imperfectly repaired. Thank you, he said simply. I didn't do it for you, Sonia replied. The anger of the previous days had burned away, leaving only exhaustion and a complicated tangle of emotions she wasn't ready to name. I know, he acknowledged. That's why it worked. The silence between them felt both fragile and significant. Finally, Maddox spoke again. Lambert Biotechnology didn't steal your research, Sonia, they stole mine. She stared at him, uncomprehending. I've been developing parallel applications based on your methodology, he explained. Applications that would have military and defense uses. I kept them separate from the medical research, compartmentalized. The data that was stolen came from my private server. The implications staggered her. So the suspicion, the investigation was necessary to maintain the cover story while we identified the actual source of the leak, he finished. Which we did. Vivian has been passing information to Lambert for months. The betrayal by his most trusted assistant explained his haggard appearance, the new lines etched around his eyes. Why didn't you tell me the truth? Because I needed everyone, including you, to behave authentically if we were going to catch her. The admission clearly cost him. I couldn't risk Elise's chance at treatment. Sonia understood his reasoning but couldn't absolve the deception. I need time, she said finally, to think about all of this. Maddox nodded, accepting her distance as the price of his choices. Your access has been fully restored. Whatever you decide about your future here, your research is yours. New Horizons. 18 months later, the Sonoran Desert bloomed after unexpected winter rains, carpeting the landscape in wildflowers that transformed the harsh terrain into a palette of purples, yellows, and reds. Sonia stood on the observation deck of the expanded research station, no longer the isolated greenhouse dome but a fully realized botanical research center employing 15 scientists and support staff. The Ward Foundation Botanical Institute, as it was now called, specialized in plant adaptation research with applications ranging from climate-resilient agriculture to medical treatments for autoimmune disorders. Sonia served as its scientific director, overseeing research that had already yielded to patented treatments and a promising drought-resistant grain variety being tested in arid regions worldwide. She checked her watch, noting it was almost time for the quarterly review meeting. These virtual sessions with the Foundation's board had become routine. Though this particular meeting carried special significance, it would determine funding for the Institute's most ambitious expansion yet. As the conference screen activated, familiar faces appeared, including Dr. J, now heading the Medical Applications Division at the Watkins facility, and Elise Ward, whose remarkable recovery had made her the Foundation's most passionate advocate. Her once frail appearance had given way to vibrant health, the neural organic interface having reset her immune system's faulty programming. Dr. Patel, Elise greeted warmly. We've reviewed your proposal for the Global Seed Bank Initiative. The board is prepared to approve full funding, with one condition, which is, Sonia asked, already anticipating the answer. That you personally oversee the international partnerships, Elise replied, beginning with the conference in Geneva next month. After the meeting concluded successfully, Sonia walked through the research fields where experimental crops grew in carefully monitored plots. The institute had become everything she had dreamed of, creating science with purpose, unconstrained by corporate interests or academic politics. Her phone chimed with a message, a simple set of coordinates and a time, followed by initials she recognized immediately. MW. The designated location was a small mesa overlooking the valley, accessible only by a winding trail through flowering ocotillo and saguaro cacti. As sunset approached, Sonia made the climb, finding a familiar figure already waiting at the summit. Maddox turned as she approached, time and distance having done little to diminish the complex connection between them. Their professional collaboration had continued through carefully structured channels, funding approvals, research reviews, occasional consultations on specific technical challenges, but personal contact had remained limited by mutual, unspoken agreement. "Congratulations on the approval," he said, offering a bottle of water from a small cooler. "The seed bank project will change lives." "That seems to be our specialty," she replied, accepting the water and settling beside him on a natural stone bench. The valley spread before them, research fields giving way to natural desert, the Watkins facility just visible on the distant horizon. They sat in companionable silence as the sun melted into the landscape, painting everything in gold and amber. Finally, Maddox spoke. "Elise is getting married next spring. She asked me to extend a personal invitation." Sonia smiled. "I'd be honored to attend." "And Nexus Technologies has officially spun off its military applications division," he continued. "The medical and agricultural research divisions now operate as separate entities under civilian oversight." The news represented the fulfillment of the conditions Sonia had set for her continued involvement with any ward enterprise: complete separation of humanitarian applications from military development. It had taken Maddox 18 months to restructure his corporate empire to meet that requirement. "That couldn't have been easy," she acknowledged. "It was necessary," he replied simply. "Some prices are worth paying." As darkness settled around them, Maddox reached into his pocket and withdrew a small metal cube that glinted in the fading light. "I have something for you." He placed it in her palm, a perfect miniature terrarium, barely larger than a dice, containing a single living plant cell visible through a microscopic lens on one face. The cell pulsed with gentle luminescence, adapting to the touch of her skin. "The first successful symbiotic interface," he explained. "Not for human application, but as a reminder of where we started." Sonia turned to the tiny cube, watching the living light respond to her movement. "Where we started, or where we're going?" "Both, I hope," Maddox said softly. The desert night embraced them as stars appeared overhead, infinite possibilities scattered across the darkness. Between them, the small light pulsed steadily, adapting and evolving much like the complicated, imperfect, beautiful connection they had forged through crisis and distance. "I received an interesting research proposal last week," Sonia said after a while. "A collaborative project on bioadaptive architecture for extraterrestrial habitats. It would require splitting my time between here and the Watkins facility." Maddox's expression remained neutral, but something kindled in his eyes. "It sounds challenging." "It would be," she agreed, "but I've developed a theory that the best innovations happen at unexpected intersections." She met his gaze directly. "Between different worlds, different perspectives, a theory worth testing," he suggested, the ghost of a smile playing at his lips. As they descended the trail together, the desert bloomed around them in the moonlight, transformed, yet fundamentally unchanged, much like the two people finding their way forward, step by careful step, into territory neither had planned to explore, but both now recognized as inevitable. The tiny light cupped in Sonia's hand pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat, adapting to its new environment just as they had adapted to each other, creating something neither could have developed alone, a future as vast and promising as the star-filled sky above them.